Hey friends, my name is Z and you're watching MakesItEasy, and welcome to the last video for IGCSE Business Studies in this Business Studies course, and I really appreciate all of you for staying with me or watching this video. But anyways, here's 6.3 for Business and the International Economy. And by the end of the lesson, you should be able to describe 6.3.1, the importance of globalization, 6.3.2, the reasons for the importance and growth of multinational companies or MNCs, and the impact of exchange rate changes. So check out the pinned comment for all the timestamps, and don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. And we'll move on to 6.3.1, the importance of globalization. And here's the concept of globalization and the reasons for it. And in many ways, the world is becoming one large market rather than a series of separate national markets. And the same goods and services that can be found in many countries around the world can be found in more countries. And workers are finding it easier to move between countries and capital or the finance, and it's also moving more freely from country to country. And there are several reasons for this increase in global trade and movement of products, people, and capital, and it's all due to globalization. But here's more information about globalization. There's increasing numbers of free trade agreements and economic unions between countries and have reduced protection for industries. And consumers can purchase goods and services from other countries with few or no import control, such as tariffs. And number 2, there's an improved and cheaper travel links and communication between all parts of the world and have made it easier to transport products globally. And in addition, the internet allows easy price comparison between goods from many countries from different websites. And online or e-commerce is allowing orders to be placed from anywhere in the world. And number 3, many emerging market countries are industrializing very rapidly. And let's say countries in Southeast Asia and China used to import many of the goods they needed, but now their own manufacturing industries are so strong that they can even export in large quantities at very competitive prices. Then we have the opportunities and threats for globalization for business. Increasing free trade and the rising mobility of labor and capital, for example the growth of multinational corporations, are having many effects on the businesses all over the globe. And some of these effects are positive or opportunities, and some are potentially negative or the threats. So here firstly we're going to focus on globalization, potential opportunities for the businesses. So number 1, we have opportunity, start selling exports to other countries. And the impact on businesses could be that this increases potential sales, perhaps in countries with fast-growing markets. But it can be expensive to sell abroad, and will foreign countries buy the products, even if they were popular in their home country? Number 2, the businesses can open factories or operations in other countries and becoming multinational. And the impact is that it could be cheaper to make some goods or any products in other countries than at the home country. But will the quality be as good as in the home country? The quality, you wouldn't want to sacrifice the quality for the location in other countries. Thirdly, for the opportunity, you have the import products from other countries to sell to customers in the home country. And for the impact, with no trade restriction, it could be profitable now to import goods and services from other countries and sell them domestically. But the products will need maintenance and perhaps repairs, and will the parts and support be available for the product in the foreign country? And that's something to think about. And number 4, for the opportunity, they could import materials and components from other countries, but still produce the final goods in the home country. And the impact is that it could be cheaper to purchase these supplies from other countries now that there's a free trade, and this will help the business to reduce costs. But something to think about is that, but will the suppliers be reliable, and will a greater distance and add too much to the transportation costs due to longer distance? Then we have potential threats for the business for globalization. Number 1, we have a threat of increasing imports into the home market from foreign competitors. The impact is that if these competitors offer cheaper prices, which is often higher quality, the sales of the local business might fall. But I think the thing about is that the increased competition could force the local businesses to become more efficient due to innovation is fueled by competition. And number 2, a threat is that increasing investment from multinationals to set up the operations in the home country. And for the impact is that this will create further competition, and the multinational may have economies of scale and be able to afford the best employees. But some local firms could become suppliers to these multinationals, and their sales could increase. So it depends where you see it from, whether against multinationals or for multinationals. And for number 3, the threat. Employees may leave businesses that cannot pay the same pay or more than international companies. And for the impact, in some professions, employees will now have more choices about where they work and who they work for, and the businesses will now need to make effort to keep their best employees. But this might encourage local businesses to use a range of motivational methods to keep their workers. And as we have seen, globalization has led to more choice and lower prices for consumers, and it has forced businesses to look for ways to increase efficiency. And this process of more and more free trade does lead to some problems, and many production workers, often in the richest countries, have lost their jobs owing to globalization. Now here's why government might introduce import tariffs and import quotas. And in the past few videos, import tariffs were explained as being one of the taxes that the governments can use to increase tax revenue. And there's another important reason why government might introduce tariffs and quotas on imports. And they are forms of protectionism, which is to protect domestic industries from competition that might otherwise close them down. And foreign competition might be able to produce products much more cheaply, and if they were allowed to import without any restriction, then local companies might be forced out of business. And this would reduce employment and incomes. And basically, an import tariff is a tax put on the imported goods when they arrive to a country, and this they usually lead to the price of the imported goods as being increased, and making them less competitive than locally produced goods. And an import quota is a regulation which limits the import of goods to a certain fixed quantity, and this reduces the amount of these goods that can be imported and often leads to an increase in the price of imported goods as they become less available. And both of these effects are likely to lead to domestically produced goods having increasing sales. And this is a simple argument to understand, but many economists believe it is wrong, and they believe it is better to allow local consumers to buy imported goods as cheaply as possible, which means without import tariffs or quotas, and for local businesses to produce and export goods and services in which they have a competitive advantage. And in this way, living standards across the globe can be increased, and this is a free trade argument. Then we have 6.3.2, the reasons for importance and growth of MNCs or multinational corporations or companies. And here's more for multinational business. It is important to remember that a multinational business or multinational corporation or company, MNC, is not one which just sells goods in more than one country. And to be able to be called multinational, a business must produce goods or services in more than one country. And multinational businesses are some of the largest organizations in the world. They include oil companies like Shell and ExxonMobil, tobacco companies, and car manufacturers like Toyota. And here are some benefits to a business for becoming a multinational and the impact on its stakeholders. Some benefits to a business from becoming a multinational are that it is able to, number 1, produce goods in countries with low costs like low wages. Number 2, they could extract raw materials which the company may need for production or refining, for example crude oil. Number 3, they could produce goods nearer to the market to reduce transportation costs. And number 4, they could avoid barriers to trade put up by the countries to reduce the import of goods. Number 5, they could increase market share and expand into different market areas to spread risk, so that if one country is experiencing recession, the other markets in other countries aren't. And then we have remained competitive with private businesses which may expand abroad. And lastly, gain government grants given to the business to set up operations in particular countries. For example, like a business could like set up in like a special economic zone in another country, or SEZ, set up by the government in that country, and there could be benefits like lower taxes or like already set up infrastructures for the business to move there to increase employment. Then we have the impact on the stakeholders of a business becoming a multinational. Number one, stakeholders are likely to receive dividends from a higher profit. Number two, employees may have increased opportunities to gain promotion as the business gets larger and has operations across many countries, and there's opportunity to live and work abroad. Number three, suppliers may have increased or decreased sales to the multinational depending on where it operates and it is located. And number four, governments may gain higher tax revenue if profits from operations abroad are repatriated, or it may lose tax revenue if the multinational locates its head office elsewhere. Then we have the potential benefits to a country's economy where a multinational operates. So number one, jobs are created which reduces the level of unemployment because there will be job in the business, for example in like an assembly line or any other operations. Number two, there will be increased investment. Number three, there will be increased exports as some of the extra output may be sold abroad. Number four, the taxes are paid by the multinationals, which increases the government's fund or like the government's tax revenue, which the governments can use it to invest in infrastructures or build hospitals or schools. And then there's increased consumer choice as there's more product choice for the consumers and more competition. However, potential drawbacks to a country's economy where a multinational operates include jobs created are often unskilled assembly line tasks, and skilled jobs such as those in research and design are not usually created in the host countries receiving the multinationals. Number two, there will be reducing sales for the local businesses, and local firms may be forced out of business because multinationals are often more efficient and have lower costs. Number three, there will be profit leaching, which means that the profits are sent back to the multinational home country, or rather than being in the country where it's set up. Therefore, this process is called leaching. Number four, we have multinationals often use up scarce and non-renewable primary resources in the host country. And lastly, as MNCs are very large, they could have a lot of influence on both the government and the economy of the host country, and they might ask the government for large grants and to keep them operating in the country. Then we have 6.3.3, the impact of exchange rate changes. And every country has its own currency, and to be able to buy things in other countries, you have to use their local currency. And some of the countries use other countries' currency, so not all of it, it's like most of it. And how much of another currency do you get in exchange for your own country's money? This will depend on the exchange rate between your currency and the foreign currency you wish to buy. And assume that the exchange rate between Euro and the US dollars is 1 Euro to $1.5. This means that for each 1 Euro being changed into dollars, $1.5, sorry, it's a typo, will be received in exchange. And in effect, the exchange rate is the price of one currency in terms of another. And here's how exchange rates are determined and depreciation and appreciation of an exchange rate. Most currencies are allowed to vary or float on the foreign exchange market according to the demand and supply of each currency. For example, if the demand for euros was greater than the demand of dollars, then the price of euros would rise, and compared to the exchange rate in the first example, the new rate might now be 1 euro to $1.75, and each euro now buys more dollars than before. Then we have how exchange rates are determined and depreciation and appreciation of an exchange rate. So depreciation of the exchange rate is when the exchange rate is worth less against other currencies. For example, if the euro to dollar originally is 1 euro to $1.5, then it dropped to 1 euro to $1, it's called a depreciation. It means as the currency of euro buys less of the other currency or dollars. And the effect of this is to, number one, make exports cheaper. For example, exports from Europe sell for a lower price in America as it takes fewer dollars to buy each euro. Number two, the imports are more expensive and do the opposite. So basically the export and the import, the prices for them are basically the opposite. Like if one rises, one decreases. If one decreases, one rises. And consequently, for appreciation, appreciation of the exchange rate is when the exchange rate is worth more against other currencies. For example, if the euro rises from $1 to $1 to €1 to $1.5, it's called an appreciation. It means the euro currency buys more of the dollar currency, and the effect of this is to raise the price of exports, because exports from the euro sell for a higher price in America than as it takes more dollars to buy each euro. And the import prices fall and demand for them might rise. Like for example, imports into Europe now cost less to buy from America, as fewer euros have to be given to buy the dollars needed for the same amount of imports. Then here's how exchange rate can affect the businesses as importers and exporters of products. And changes in the exchange rate affect businesses in several different ways. For number one, we will look into exporting businesses. So here's a case study. In the case study on the right here, consider the impact of changing exchange rates on an exporting business, which is one which sells goods and services abroad. So you can have a read. And the change in the exchange rate described in the case study on the right is called appreciation, because the value of the dollar has increased. And exporters have a serious problem when the currency of the country appreciates, as it becomes less competitive in foreign markets and may lose sales, revenue, and or profit. Then we have importing business. Here's a case study for an importing business. Now consider how an importing business, one which buys goods and services from abroad, might be affected by changing exchange rates. And we have shown that an importing firm will have higher costs if the exchange rate of its currency depreciates, but will have lower costs if the exchange rate appreciates. However, an exporting firm will be able to reduce its prices with the currency depreciation, but may have to raise prices with the currency appreciation. And you can now see how seriously businesses can be affected by exchange rate movement. And this helps explain why some international organizations such as the European Union or the EU have tried to reduce exchange rate movements. And in the case of the EU, it has introduced a common currency, which is the euro, which removes the need for separate currencies and exchange rate between member countries. So here's a recap of the exchange rate. At the price of one currency in terms of another, we have the supply of the currency and the demand of the currency. And for appreciation, exchange rate rises. This will cause import price to fall and export price to rise. And in the case of depreciation, where the exchange rate falls, the import price will rise and the export price could fall. And lastly, here's some references for 6.3 of business and the international economy. Number one, we have globalization. And globalization is a term now widely used to describe increases in the worldwide trade and movement of people and capital between countries. And then we have free trade agreements. Free trade agreements exist when countries agree to trade imports or exports with no barriers such as tariffs and quotas. Then we have import tariffs. An import tariff is a tax placed on imported goods when they arrive into a country. Then we have import quota. An import quota is a restriction on the quantity of a product that can be imported. Then we have protectionism. Protectionism is when the government protects domestic businesses from foreign competition using tariffs and quotas. Then we have multinational businesses or MNCs. Multinational businesses are like those with factories, production or service operations in more than one country. And these are sometimes known as transnational businesses or transnational company or corporations, TNC. And then we have exchange rate. An exchange rate is the price of one currency in terms of another currency, for example, £1 to $1.5. Currency appreciation. Currency appreciation occurs when the value of a currency rises, and it buys more of another currency than before. And lastly, for currency depreciation. And currency depreciation occurs when the value of a currency falls, and it buys less of another currency. And that's it for this video for 6.3 of IGCSE Business Studies, where today we look into the last lesson for the business and the international economy. And I really appreciate all of you for watching this playlist or video, or maybe just this video. And if you want to check out my other videos for IGCSE Business Studies, check out my channel for the whole playlist. But I hope you'll find it useful and helpful, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and ring the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any future videos. And comment if you have any comments or constructive criticisms, and I'll reply to them in the comment section as fast as possible. And also check out my Instagram in the description for more daily content, and check out my website in the description for more resources. Or you can type it up in your browser at www.MakesItEasy.com. And I hope you'll find it useful and helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next playlist and in the next subject. Until then, stay safe and happy learning.